Hey everybody, I've got something for you here, and I should preface this by saying I love it when train manufacturers bring back something that has not been made for a long time, usually by another company whose tooling they purchased at some point. And so that's what we've got going on here. So this is an Atlas Trainman car that just came in the other day. It is the 52.5 foot, 70-ton War Emergency Gondola, item number 2002807-4, Rock Island number 1224. So let's take a look at this. Now, for a bit of history, the wartime emergency gondolas were made during World War II when steel was at a premium because it was needed for the war effort. And so rather than using steel on these gondolas, they substituted out wood. And so you had a mixture of steel and wood instead of all steel. So here is our Rock Island wartime emergency gondola. And as you can see, it looks really nice. Look at that underside. Die-cast metal trucks and couplers. Very nice detailing. I like the painted wood floor there. Now, one thing that makes these gondolas interesting is that the ends fold in like that. At least this end does. I'm not sure if this end does. I can't remember. Yeah, it does too. So, kind of interesting that you can fold the ends in like that. And then they come up like that. So, this is a very beautifully done wartime emergency gondola. It's part of Atlas's Trainman line, which is their line of slightly less expensive O-scale trains. They usually have a little less fine detailing than the Master Series or the XMTH Premier line stuff, but they're still very nicely done. I mean, honestly, I think this has some wonderful detailing on it. Now, getting back to what I said earlier, the cool part about this is that when it arrived, I knew it looked familiar. I said, I've seen this model before. I've seen it from Weaver models back in the day. And in fact, I have, I think, 4 of the Weaver emergency wartime gondolas that they made back in the day. And that's the tooling that Atlas used to create this model. When Weaver closed their doors back in 2014, the American tooling went to Lionel, the overseas tooling went to Atlas, as I understand it, and the wartime emergency gondolas had fine enough detailing where they weren't made using the American tooling, which was much more basic. These were made using the overseas tooling, and so they ended up in the hands of Atlas. And here we have the ex-Weaver emergency wartime gondolas now being made by Atlas. And it is so cool to see these live on under the Atlas name. So let me show you the original Weaver version of this. So here are my 4 Weaver emergency wartime gondolas. I've got Santa Fe, Maine Central in black, L&N, and New York Central. So let's check out one of these. And we'll do the L&N version. And here that is. And you can definitely see the similarity. Now, Weaver didn't paint the floor. That's an upgrade that Atlas did. But other than that, it's pretty much identical to the Atlas version, except that at this time, Weaver was using plastic trucks and couplers. Now, I did add metal couplers to this model at one point, but it still has the plastic trucks. So it makes it a little bit lightweight. And because of that, on some of these, I've added weights to the bottom to give them a little more heft. Now, later on, you'll see in a minute, they switched to all die-cast metal trucks and couplers, and the result was a heavier car. But this is one of the earlier versions where they were still using the plastic trucks and couplers. The ends still come down, just like on the new Atlas model. I mean, it's basically exactly the same. Very nice. Here's the New York Central version. And this has the all plastic trucks and plastic couplers. So this is one of the older versions. And you can see on this one, I did add the weights down here just to give it a little more heft on the rails. You have to do that with a lot of these older Weaver models because they did like to use the plastic trucks and couplers. And so it's nice to add a little weight. Now, the Weaver plastic trucks and couplers, unlike the Lionel plastic trucks, are actually not that bad as far as plastic trucks go. They actually do have a little bit of give to them, and I would say that the Weaver plastic trucks are better than Lionel plastic trucks for sure. Now, the plastic couplers I've never been a fan of because the spring mechanism is a plastic spring which tends to break over time, but they work. It's just sometimes the spring mechanism gives out. So die-cast metal couplers with a real spring in there are always better. But the Weaver plastic trucks, you know, like I said, they're not terrible. It's always better to have die-cast, of course, because it does have more weight, but they're not terrible. And so oftentimes I don't bother replacing them. I mean, you could replace them with some Weaver die-cast metal trucks if you can find them on eBay, but I rarely do that. I just add some weight to the car and call it a day. But yeah, it's a very beautiful model. And I'm so glad that Atlas is now doing this and bringing it back to life. And the last one we'll check out is the main central. This one is done in black. And this is one of the later ones that Weaver did, because at this point they changed over to the die-cast metal sprung trucks and the die-cast metal couplers. And so as a result, the car does have a little bit healthier of a weight. Although I would probably still add some weight to this just to give it a little more heft. I like doing that. But yeah, again, a very beautiful model. I mean, Weaver really did a great job on these. And, you know, it's always so exciting when an old model that was really done right in the first place is resurrected by an existing company. And so that's why I was thrilled when the Atlas Trainman model arrived. Now, I suspect that Atlas put the X-Weaver gondola into the Trainman line rather than the Master Series because they were, you know, very plasticky. There wasn't a whole lot of metal. And so because of that, it's, you know, probably not considered quite as fancy as a Master Series model. But honestly, for a Trainman model, this is really nice. I mean, it's kind of borderline Trainman Master Series, if you ask me, especially with that underframe detailing. It's very well done. And I really like how Atlas has not only brought this model back, but they've made it better by putting the Atlas die-cast metal trucks and couplers on there and painting that floor in that nice wood color just to give it a little more realism. You know, that's what I like about Atlas. They have a habit of doing that. And whenever they redo a model or bring it back, they never cheap out and cut things. They always add stuff to it. That's what they've done here. They've made it better than it was before, in my opinion. And like I said, it's just great to see a great old model like this have new life again under a new banner, that being Atlas. Anyway, so I'll end this video by taking all of these wartime emergency gondolas for a quick spin on the layout. That's going to do it for now. I'm Eric Siegel. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. To discuss this model and any other O-gauge trains, check out the O-Gauge Railroading online forum at ogrforum.ogaugerr.com.